This fresh new screen protector. Rip psych. Alright, I've been working on a couple QCW interrupters. Here's one that I kind of based off Finn Hammer's code. So this is just using a nano. Just kind of condensed it down to the 3 pots. And yeah, that's just using a real basic architecture where I've got the laser out for a fiber. I think I've just got on time, BPS, and amplitude, and I'm just sort of gating that through this one shot. Well, I suppose I'm gating it like that. Well, let me see. Yeah, so I've just got it, so I've got a one shot, and that provides me the output where my laser actually fires. But that's, pretty simple, more or less the same concept. And this one right here, well, what I actually try to do is I had this little screen and I wanted to get some type of feedback using the nano, but the nano is just so old and crappy it can't possibly do it. It just doesn't have the hardware capability. So I thought about adding another nano or even like a Raspberry Pi. So I've got this old Raspberry Pi. I've actually got that hooked up right now, but I've just left it there. I was trying to work out something with the screen and I'm going to that monitor right now, but that screen ended up breaking. Ended up being real annoying, so I kind of went back to this chip right here. So this is a board I've had for a little while. I've been saving it for something good, and I just decided to use it. But this is a little ESP32 chip. It's compatible with Arduino, the Arduino IDE. So this is just one of those deals that's got a little screen hat already built into it. It's pre-wired in. But this board right here is like just way more capable than the Nano. So this is the only difference. This is using a 3.3 volt logic. So eventually I'm going to power it into the VN coming off this little guy, and I'll just try to retain 5 volt output signal. So I guess I could just switch those off of some other rail like this. Right now I've just got this on there for switching the laser out at the normal 5 volts. So I'm not going to add any of that yet. I'm still just kind of testing the architecture. So the way this is set up is I'm just going to go ahead and give it the 2 outputs just if I want an enable. So I've got the enable pulse here, and here goes the ramp squares. Right now I've just got that feeding into this little RC filter. That way I can get an idea of what the ramp waveform looks like. And I've just gated it through these 2 switches here. So let's see, to make it simple, I've just got a one shot. So this is the switch. It's going to output when I press it. I can hold it down, it's going to output whatever the engine is running. But instead of using another output, I've just put this toggle in parallel with the momentary, right? That kind of got rid of some headaches. But essentially the concept is I've got a on time, down slope, amplitude, wick, knee adjustment, and then the BPS on here. And the idea is I can get some type of visual feedback on the screen. So right now I wouldn't run closed loop. This would all be open loop, but I'd be looking to get a visual representation of just what these values are set to on the screen, right? Holy crap, I just realized I've got like a pro video mode on here. So that'll actually let me adjust the auto ISO so I can freaking film this crap. So anyway, just to make it easier, I'm just going to show the ramp waveform RC filtered on this little scope right here. I've just got the one channel hooked up. But essentially, and I'm going to compare it. So you can see this is how I've done it, right? I've just tried to put a little green trace on the screen. Well, first let me bring it all the way down. So I've tried to put this little green trace, which is supposed to be a somewhat accurate representation of what the actual ramp waveform is going to look like. But of course, there's a lot of complex math involved if you want to really get an idea of what the actual ramp is going to be based on the output. So a lot of this is not doing that. For example, the actual BPS at the time is accurate, but let's just say some of these other representations are just going to be pot math. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it off at the lowest on time like that, and see the way this is set up. This is just my I've got the BPS up high actually. Let me put it about right there. So for one, you can kind of see the way this is set up. I've got a little blinking indicator there that's just showing the engine, but I don't actually have output until this indicator lights up. So I'm going to flip the switch on, just leave it always on, right? Of course, I got nothing on the scope because the amplitude is all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the amplitude all the way up. So you can see that's a percentage, just 0 to 100. So I know it's a little blurry, but it's kind of how that is. And that's my representation of that waveform on the scope. Maybe you can kind of see them both at the same time. So I've tried to zoom in this scope to make it about, equal. But I'm going to cut the BPS all the way up. And I'm going to have to zoom out of this guy a little bit. And then I have to bring the measurement back. Where's that at? Frequency. Alright, so you can see what this is reading is about 15 hertz, which is what that reads in blue. I've color coded it sort of according to the pots, right? So I'm going to adjust that down to, I'm just going to put it at an arbitrary, like, let's see, that'll say 7.75 hertz. And right there, I've got 7.7, right? So just as an example, that is an accurate BPS. So I'm just going to cut that all the way back up, zoom back out on here to see that a little better. And again, those are the two waveforms. So amplitude all the way up, on time. I've also got the wick here. So if I turn the wick up, you can see that's just a percentage. So I think it goes up to 20% and down, and that scales with amplitude, of course, like that, right? So I probably wouldn't use the wick, but it's cool to have. So that's on time, and I've also got the downslope adjustment right there. So you can see I can increase or decrease that downslope. So that's 0%. And so I've just got these 2 millisecond readings. So here's me just adjusting the downslope. So that's a percentage as well. So when I leave it all the way up and adjust the total on time, then that's going to go down with it, right? So that's pretty cool. And then let's just say I bring that back down. The last setting that I've got is the knee adjustment, which is this pot here. So I've added a slight little knee adjustment, you could see. So that's 100%. That's what the waveform looks like when I add that knee. That's just sort of experimental. Just figured that'd be kind of cool. So yeah, again, that's that's kind of how this works. I thought that was pretty nifty. Get a little screen like that. And while I don't want to get lackadaisical and to think that I'm actually looking at a real representation of what the ramp waveform is going to look like on the power side, at least as far as the signal side goes, I think that's pretty nifty. I feel like that's a good use for that board, right? The only thing about that board is I think you get what you get. This is pretty cheap, but I noticed that on this particular board, the pins 25 and 33 were electrically swapped. They're right next to each other on the silk screen, but they had them wired wrong, and I had to verify that in the serial monitor. But once I got that figured out, it was less of a headache, let's just say. But yeah, it seems pretty cool, fairly stable. I had to do a lot of different little iterations here to make this stable. But so far, I think I ended up with what seems pretty good. A very smooth green trace adjustment, relatively realistic values here. I could just sort of just glance at what's going on here and get an idea of like, okay, well, this is what my ramps are doing at the time, right? All right, now I've moved the scope over to the enable pulse. So there's just a few details there. So let's just say I move the total on time. So right here I've got a total on time. Well, let's just bring it down to there. I'm moving my down slope to 2.5. So I've got a total on time, let's just say, of 27.5 milliseconds. And right here it looks like I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So I'm going to say that's a hair under 30. So basically the way this code works, you got about a 2 millisecond delay as far as generating the wick. So if you factor that in, then your enable pulse does span the whole window, just slightly more, right? So that seems to work. And of course, if I just the on time, so I'm just playing with the upslope now, all the way up, all the way down, and then here's the downslope, which adds a little bit more to it also. So it's important that it scales with that. And I'd say that's about it. I just have to wire it up and get the output right. But so far, this portion of it seems pretty nifty. It was kind of a nightmare to get it coded because, again, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I had to use chatgpt. And at a certain point, you really kind of got to dig in and see what's going on structurally yourself. But for the most part, it's the same stuff, right? So long as you understand how the GPT is actually working, makes it a whole lot easier to do this stuff. If you let it convince you into thinking that it's got some particular way of operating just due to the way that it explains things, well, you're gonna waste a whole bunch of time because, like for example, it can store memories and stuff, but you can't really tell the GPT to be like, hey, store this code and reference it later, because it's not going to store the code line for line. It just cannot do it. What it's going to do is it's going to take a snapshot of how it thinks the core functionality works, and it's going to just summarize that, right? It's not going to store the code. So if you're not careful, you're liable to tell it to just make one little small iteration for you, small little change, and what it's going to do is it's going to start altering other parts of the code because it's more or less constructing it line by line, from the ground up every single time. It specifically cannot just make short little concise edits unless you frame it absolutely properly. But that aside, again, it kind of worked out. It looks a little shit now when I've got these colors on here. I had it all white before. But in person, I think that looks pretty cool. Maybe the screen could be bigger, but like I say, this little guy right here was like $10. And I'm pretty sure this was the exact board that I got right here. So it's like right now it says $13. I got it a while ago. You can probably find this kind of same board somewhere else. But again, I would just make sure that all the pins line up. You might have to match the silk screen with what the actual GPIO is by reading the serial monitor. But if you do that first and just get that out the way and confirm all your pinouts, then you don't have to needlessly waste time later. Ended up using this board package, ESP32 Expressive, so it's 2.014. Apparently that was a fairly stable version. So that's what I had to go with, and I also had to download this TFT ESPI library. But after that, once I made sure that all the screen pinouts were proper, like I wasn't using them, and I had my code set up in here, my setup file set up to use the right screen pins, then from there it wasn't too bad.